Hi, I am Kirsty. I'm one of the organisers of Swansea Zine Fest, and so organiser of these shenanigans that are happening today. As you can probably tell from the subject, the title of my talk, some things I love about Perzines. I'm going to talk about Perzines today, and I anticipate it'll be less of a talk and more of some rambled thoughts that I've had that hopefully other people will find interesting in some way, shape, or form. So, for those of you that don't know, Perzines are a type of zine that are kind of, the Per stands for personal. Wikipedia has reliably informed me that Perzine describes zines that are written about one's own personal experiences, opinions, or observations, which I think is kind of fair enough. I would agree with that. Yes, they kind of focus on like a person and their life and experiences, or a particular aspect of their life and experiences, rather than on a particular subject. There are lots of crossovers. There are lots of crossovers, but that's kind of broadly it. I first was introduced to zines kind of through like feminist comp zines, but then very quickly Perzines, and they really intrigued me. But it took me a long time to be brave enough to write one, which I'll talk about a little bit in a minute. So I was going to try and separate this vague rambling into kind of things I love about Perzines as a reader and things I love about Perzines as a writer. But as I was putting everything together, it just didn't make sense because everything sort of blurs together. So I'm going to talk about it that way. There are some things that are quite specific to writing, but lots of things are kind of the same. So a big one for me about the thing that I really, really love about Perzines is authenticity. And I think you get an authenticity in Perzines and a truth in Perzines that you don't get in other kinds of media. There's this thing I think that a lot of people have, I think particularly, I think everyone, but possibly particularly people from some kinds of marginalized groups, that we don't have as much confidence because we compare what we see of other people, their outsides, we compare to our insides, and we see, oh, these people are really confident and competent and know what they're doing, and they're really interesting, and all of these things come really easily to them. And then we're comparing that to our own kind of self-doubt. And what I like about Perzines is you read people's Perzines and you think, this person is a person I know to be successful and competent, and funny and charming and all of the things that I might want to be myself. And then I can also read and this person is really like self-conscious about this thing, or they don't think they're very good at this, or like they doubt whether their art is worth making, and lots of things like that then are unbelievable. And I think I like that because it makes me realize that maybe like potentially people can read, people that I can write things, and people could potentially think those same things about me, like I could potentially be interesting. And I like that as well about the way Perzines can talk about really mundane, like day-to-day aspects of people's lives and be, like intensely interesting. And that makes me feel, as a writer, a lot like, cool, I can write about like whatever show I want to write about. And there will be people who are interested in reading that, and there will be people who won't be interested in reading that, and that's okay too. But I think that authenticity I find really reassuring and really grounding. yeah, well, so when I first got into zines, I initially was much more into like editing and contributing into other zines. And I started Sonorous, Feminist Perspectives on Harry Potter, because it felt like a way that I could be kind of a bit safe and gather other people's views and use some of my own, but kind of be a little bit kind of academic about things. And I was scared of making a Perzine because I was worried that I wasn't interesting enough. And then I think I read enough Perzines that I realised that we're all both very ordinary and really extraordinary, and that, you know, we all can be interesting and we all have something to offer to that narrative. Yeah, I just find Perzines really raw and relatable in their content, and I love that. Again, in terms of relatability, I find Perzines to be very, very representative, and you see viewpoints and experiences in Perzines that that you don't really see in other media. Like, there are different defaults. Like, generally, like if I pick up a mainstream women's magazine, I know that I will be alienated from the experience, because the assumption will be that but, you know, particularly for me, the assumptions will be that I am heterosexual and that I would like to be skinny, and those things don't jar, those things jar with me, whereas in Perzines those defaults are wildly different. Like if I read a Perzine by someone who isn't queer, I'm like, oh, fine, but like, good. I'm glad there are lots of different people, but it's a different default, and being in the majority as a queer woman is really great in terms of like a community of people making Perzines. I like and just generally, like, Perzines are a medium which is really quite dominated by voices that we don't tend to hear in mainstream media. I like how idiosyncratic that Perzines can be. So they're really representative of the people who write them. Like, there are common features that people might use, like different formats and stuff, but the final product is so unique to that person. And I really like how everyone's Perzines kind of look and read like them in some way. So I know Perzine writers who their work is meticulously neat and beautifully handwritten, and some people who have completely wild handwriting, and some people who always type it and always use a very particular kind of font, or always use, lots of people who use like very sedate backgrounds, some people who use like more kind of gothic stuff. Like, just kind of that, all of that stuff all together comes to look and read like that person. I love that, and I love making my things look and sound like me. So in terms of, I guess, the last two things really about as a writer. So I really like, I've always been a writer, I've always loved writing, but I think since I finished university I've really struggled with writing for, like, not for publication, not for kind of thing, like not with like a fixed outcome. So like, I occasionally write some fan fiction, and then that works kind of in a similar way in terms of the fact that that is posted. But I like having, like, right, okay, I'm going to write this thing, I want to write about this thing, and I have the ability to like process and reflect while I'm writing on particular things, and then I'm going to make it into this thing. So it kind of has the benefit of processing things, but also, like, it forms itself into an outcome which can be whatever I want it to be. The processing is another big thing which I really enjoy. So like, sometimes I've decided I want to write about something and I don't actually know what I think about it until it starts to go down on the paper, and I think, oh no, actually I guess I have felt this way about this thing for a certain amount of time, or maybe that is how I want this to be, or how I see this thing, or all of those sort of like differences about how I think and feel about things can kind of come out in the writing process. And I really enjoy the fact that I've been making my Perzine Forever Incomplete, and I have some other kind of like smaller topical Perzines that I've made throughout that time as well. But I think I made my first Forever Incomplete in 2014, Easter 2014, so that's 6 years now. And I've got 6 years then of things I can go back, and sometimes lots of things, the early ones, I cringe like hell. But I've got a record of very particularly how I felt and thought about a particular thing at a time. And I really like that. So that has been some rambling about Perzines. I hope you got some things from it. Thank you.